I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's see. We need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight, January 6th, 2025.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. And we also need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting that was on December 16th, 2024.
Motion to approve the minutes from December 16th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good. All right, next up, we've got school committee chairperson comments. I don't really have any other than hope everybody had a good break, good holidays, and is back with full of energy to do it again. So, welcome back. Community comments? Anybody in the room tonight for community comment? No. Sam, anybody online raising their hands?
I see no attendees.
No attendees, all right. Well, this will be our one and only time for community comments, so we can move on from there. Next up, we can move to student comments.
I'm going to start, or do you want that?
Do you mind if we move to the table?
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
Everyone,
Just
Happy New Year. Thanks for the chance to be here tonight. We appreciate it. We're really excited to be joined by Arlo Gibbons and Charlotte St. Pierre. And of course, you know, Hannah. We're going to talk a little bit about our work with Mastery Learning Record. And I know there's not anyone online yet, but in case anyone tunes in later, you know that our work with Mastery has been one of our big focal areas for the course of the past few years, telling students stories of success beyond grades. And we've been doing a multi-year pilot where students in the senior class have developed Mastery Learning Records. We have 3 students with us tonight who have completed MLRs and are in the process of using that for their college application process. They're amazing. We think we have 16 overall who are completing them. And you probably heard a lot about our work with MLR over the course of the past few weeks, whether in the school administrator article, hope you saw that, in AASA, which was really cool. A lot of our students featured. I said it's not time or life, but school administrator ends up on the desk of every superintendent, which was really cool to have our students featured in that. And then in addition, Mrs. Moran and I have been continuing our student features. So
great. So last week we had kind of an overview student feature. So you probably saw that about learning records. It's a lot to share. We try and keep our features short. We know everyone's time is precious, but there's a lot of exciting pieces to share. So that was an overview. And this week, today, we kicked off with 2 of our students, Bridget Klupa and Susie Barrows, were the 2 that we highlighted today. You'll see more in the upcoming weeks. We have 4 weeks of them to share with 2 students each week. But tonight we have live and in person 3 of our scholars who are going to have the chance to share a little bit about you. Oftentimes when we let our students speak, there's not much else we need to say. They're great spokespeople for the work that they're doing and the things that they have to share. So that is the feature that went out today. So we asked the students to share just a little bit about why they chose to be part of this pilot. It's not a requirement. It's something they do with support, obviously, from John and I and their school counselors and their teachers, but they stepped up to this challenge, a little bit about why, and then kind of left the other part open-ended, whether they want to talk about the impact of it or kind of what they felt like they got out of the process or how it impacted college applications and other things. So I don't know who would like to start. Wants to kick it off? So you're going to go, Arlo? Perfect.
So hi, I'm Arlo again. I chose to do the Mastery Learning Record because I had a bunch of great learning opportunities in previous years here at NITMA that I really wanted to showcase. And unfortunately, when you're applying to college, they don't really have all of these spaces for you to put in. Like, for instance, I went to NASA, which was fantastic, but I can't talk about that in my college application because they just want a list of what you did. So that's fast to get through. But with the Mastery Learning Record, I was able to specifically highlight it and go more in depth into it and how it made me a better learner, a better student, how it benefited my education. And it was just really beneficial for me to be able to explain things like that. And another example is that I did the internship program here, and I wasn't able to talk about that, and it was really important to me. So the Master Learning Record gave me a fantastic opportunity to talk about opportunities like that.
Great.
Yeah, bouncing off of that, I really feel like there's a lot that the transcript, like just a normal high school transcript, doesn't show. And there was a lot of stuff that like I really wanted colleges to know about myself, like playing sports and just like clubs that I'm really into. And I really just wanted to give colleges like as much as possible information just so that they could really get like a better sense of who I am. Because I didn't feel like my like SAT stood out too much or anything like that. And so I really just wanted to give something beyond numbers that they could work with for themselves. Yeah, so you guys have heard me yap extensively about that, but I'll just do a little more tonight. I recently, yesterday, I recorded a video for Brown because they asked you to do like a video introduction thing, and I had no idea what to talk about. 2 minutes, and I was like, I'll just go to whatever I talk about all the time whenever I need to talk about something. It's my MLR. So I kind of like passively aggressively was kind of like, if you see this and you don't like it and you don't want me and I don't want you, because this thing shows like who I am in all forms. Like I have this one where it's like me being a sister, and because my sisters mean so much to me, and like I feel like that really shows who I am. So it's kind of like I've said many times before, if they don't, I don't want them at this point. I feel like it's like the MLR has really like solidified my opinion on that, because I have so much more to offer than just like the numbers that are on the paper. And even like the grades aren't bad, they're not bad, but like even if they were perfect, I still wouldn't want them to be the sole reason why I get into a college anywhere.
Great. Any other thoughts about kind of the impact the process had? Again, you spoke a little bit to that, or advice that you have for, you know, upcoming students. Would you recommend that they do it? Was it worth the time?
I definitely recommend anyone coming up doing it. I know when I went in to do it, I was like, oh, this is a really daunting task. This is something that's gonna be really difficult, because I thought it took a lot of work. But when I sat down to do it, it was just talking about myself, which going into it, I'm like, this is gonna be really hard to talk about myself. The format that it has, it makes it really easy for you to discuss things that you're interested in and things that are to you. And it makes it easy to discuss the parts of yourself that you want to show your college without having to be like, oh, well, I don't want to compliment myself for this, this, and this. Because honestly, if you sit down and try and do that out of the blue, it's hard. But it prompts you with things that are important to you and stuff like that, which makes it a lot easier to explain.
Great. Any other thoughts?
I think it was kind of hard, not hard, but it definitely was time consuming to make. I mean, I also did kind of try hard and like did more than I should. I was doing the most, but I made like a presentation for each one, like a Canva presentation. And even though like it was a lot of work and it took a lot of time, like admittedly I did enjoy it because I like doing all digital things. I love Canva, it's my best friend, and I would be able to like use it for every single presentation. And then seeing them all next to each other, it was just like, I just felt so proud of myself. I was like, I made this, and like I would show my parents, and they would be like, I can't even see it. I'm like, I just want you to see all the cute little designs that I put on every single slide. So like, I think it was definitely time consuming, but I felt like it was worth it, because if the words don't bring people in, the graphics will. And also like, I think I did do a good job with the words, and I had like a good mix of the two, but I really like that each one was themed to each thing. Sorry, I'm just talking so much about the colors and Canva and stuff, but
Hannah has extensive evidence if you ever get to see her MLRs. She spent a lot of time creating, compiling evidence within evidence to be sure that her MLR was extremely complete. It's quite impressive, but they're all quite impressive when you get the opportunity to look at them. We didn't bring them up today. There's some personal information that pops up like a traditional transcript that has names and birth dates, and but hopefully you get the opportunity. We're happy to share. And I'm sure the students are as well, their access code if anyone's interested in viewing them.
Want to give you a chance to ask some questions. Just one thought before we get to that. So an hour ago, my 18-year-old, I have an 18-year-old now, was having me read his supplemental essay for a school he's applying to today. It's due today. One last look at it and take a look at it. And I can see how much he's labored over trying to capture his whole story into 350 words. And so, take the dad hat off and put the principal hat back on. I love the fact that the MLR gives them a chance to talk about junior internships and clubs and activities and the things that they care about. Honestly, though, and I think I'm speaking for Mary Ann on this as well, what I care about most is the process they go through. The fact that they have really identified what they care about, what they know about themselves, the things that make them special, the things that give them confidence in who they are, the things that help them match a community, as much as getting into school is a big part of our job. And I'm not poo-pooing that. It's a huge part of what we do. A bigger part is helping them gain a sense of confidence about who they are, knowledge of what their skills are, and the strength of self to be able to move on from these two small communities ready for what's next. And we feel like the MLR is a really big piece of that. And we're excited. I'll turn it over for questions in a second. We're excited about their work. But right now we're in the process of taking all of our 10th graders through it. Coming up on January 13th, all of our faculty members will be working to provide feedback to 2 students. Everyone has 2 students that they're advising. So we're now taking it from pockets of amazing young people who are showing proof of concept to all of our amazing young people from the class of 2027 on. Yes, Ryan, cut your line.
Yeah, no. 2 questions for you, just out of curiosity. Can you talk to me a little bit about the mechanics of it? Like, so I'm a student who wants to do it. Do I go to www.mlr and start filling out a template, or what's the mechanics of it? And then I guess the second question follow on is how, and I've never been through yet the college application process, but how do you tell a college about it? Is it like in the comment section of your application, or how do you tell them, hey, go look at this additional information?
I can speak on that. I know that principals made this really nicely organized doc. Like when I first started, and it was simple. It was like describe this one activity and like associated competencies. Like that was like the beginning. So I kind of just blabbed about like random things that I did. And I put an I can statement, and that was the beginning. And then it got more intricate, and then it was like show evidence. I was like, okay, here's a photo. And I was like, oh, I have more photos. And I put them in Canva, and then I put the Canva on the doc, and then it was all organized like that. And then after that doc was done, I reviewed it, and then we ended up putting it in the website, and then it just kind of grew from there. So like having the guidance, their guidance really helped. And I spoke to my counselor a lot about it because I also didn't know how colleges would perceive it. And she told me that instead of receiving like my NITLOOK transcript, they're going to receive this page that has the entry code for my MLR. And like in order to even get to my grades to see how I did, whatever, they need to go through all these cameras to get there at the end. So it's like they're gonna see it no matter what. And that's the thing that's going to them. They will get my transcript as well, but the MLR transcript also serves as that.
It's not like shopping at a furniture store though, where you gotta walk all the way through and it becomes a nuisance. We try and provide really clear directions. We have an opening letter. It includes links, and the counselors in some cases are including a link to their PDF that Hannah referenced in their letters of recommendation as well. So there's a couple of spots that they can gain access to.
So you still do the common application to apply to college,
Correct.
and then when the school sends their piece, it's in there.
Yeah, it's
So
an
it's-
official school record. So we have a platform, the school owns well, we have access to the platform, we pay for it, but all the students have a school issued account. And so we have final check marks on everything. They're not allowed to put anything on the MLR that doesn't get approved by us, because ultimately it's an official school record that we chip as a school community. They do have access. They can give the URL and their code to anyone they want to. But in terms of us sending it to schools, it goes along with the traditional transcript.
How long will we keep it? So they're applying to colleges or whatever now. If someone takes a gap year or something, is it gonna be still there?
Sure, my understanding is that it lives there forever. I just actually had a graduate from last year reach out today. He was looking for the 1-page PDF so he could ship it up, or it must be for an internship or something else, because he's already enrolled in college. And must have just lost track of it. But no, they still have access to it and it lives there. So yeah.
So that's my understanding as well. This was originally derived as a consortium between colleges and high schools to come up with a format of information that could be consumed easily by the admissions departments of the schools, right?
Correct.
Is that still organized? Are we still submitting MLR transcripts to only the MLR consortium schools, or is it broadly across all schools?
To all schools. So if we have a student applying to a school that has never seen or accepted an MLR, Mastery Transcript Consortium personally reaches out to that college or university to be sure that they're well versed in what this transcript or learning record looks like so that they can access it. We're using it as a learning record. Some schools use it as their sole transcript. And so they need to be able to know how to read it. But I don't know what the numbers are up to. Do you know?
I don't know, Sam, if you could go there or not, but if we go to mastery.org, there's a running list of all the schools that have accepted students using the MLR. And
I
it's
don't-
hundreds now.
Yeah.
They keep it updated really well.
So, okay, go ahead. I was gonna ask, I'm curious, so I don't know if you've spoken with your peers who didn't do the master transcript, just in terms of their experiences with applications, and I'm wondering, like, you know, filling out the activities section on the Common App, since you'd already sort of done all of this reflecting along the way before you may have gotten to that point, did that make it easier for you than say somebody who was just coming into it cold and had to really kind of break down their activities and what they wanted to highlight?
Well, I would say that, like, I mean, everyone that I know, like at, you know, at this age has so many activities and just things that they do in general. And we all kind of came into this fresh anyway, because we're kind of this like pilot group. And so that was a little bit challenging for all of us, just because it was, you know, we'd never really seen this before, and we had to figure out how to do this within, you know, so much time with everything else going on. But I truly believe, and like we're proof that it's possible. I think that anyone can do it because everyone already has all of these skills and activities, and you just have to find a way to best like write it down and like put it on a little sheet pretty much. And that's also kind of the fun part, as we've said. So I really feel like anyone can do it, even if it feels like it's kind of, you're not familiar with it yet.
Yeah, I honestly, I echo exactly what you said, Hannah, about, you know, you get this feeling like this is who I am. If you don't want me, that's not my fault. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people have experienced before this was available to you. So, you know, to be able to come in and go, look, this is not my fault. You don't want me. I'm valuable. So that's cool.
To tailor off Sean's comments, I remember I was in a leadership seminar many years ago, but one of the questions in the course was, if you really knew me, you had to fill in the blank and everybody had to share. But this seems like the perfect manifestation of that, right? Sharing how much your sisters mean to you or the NASA program is, if you really knew me.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right. Is there enough flexibility to customize this depending on the colleges that you're applying to? Like, for example, a Common App it's one app that goes out to all of your colleges with maybe supplemental essays. Is there one mastery transcript and it goes out to everyone you're going to send it to? Or can you choose to highlight certain things depending on where you're applying?
The mastery learning transcript that we had is just one that you send out to all your colleges, like you would do the Common App.
It's like very complicated, the whole thing. I'm sure you probably know, like high school needs to directly send the transcript, but there were some colleges that I didn't send the MLR to only because I got direct admissions to a few schools like UNH and UMass Boston. So I didn't really like, at the time, my MLR wasn't finished yet. And I was like, well, I kind of just want to get this application already in so I could just see like ceremony and like anything else. So I just asked my counselor to just send my regular transcript to those specific schools and then the MLR to the other schools. So you can like pick and choose, but it's all about like talking to your counselor.
Cool. So, and this is being rolled out to the freshmen, did you say?
So all the sophomores, last
The
year,
sophomores.
freshman seminar, they got introduced to it and they begun their evidence collection. We're using a tool that Mastery provides called the Progress Tracker, which students are allowed to upload reflections, point to the portrait of the learner competencies that they've earned. As you know, it's all based on the paper. And then a faculty member reviews it and decides whether or not to award competency or suggest some edits, give feedback, and collect a resubmission. So over the course of their high school career, all students will have the chance to earn competency in all of our POL skills. In addition, they have a chance to mine out some advanced competencies that really tell their story in even more than the typical student would.
So a lot of this, I think, you know, from my point of view, I feel really strongly that this is a good thing to do. But I don't have any empirical evidence to show me that it's doing some effective thing, right? So how do we take some empirical measurements on this? Are we being successful with what our intentions are? I think we can say that it's forming students' understanding of who they are and what they want to be, presenting themselves to the world. That's an advantage. I think we can say, yes, this is helping, but is there anything as far as assisting with acceptances in colleges or getting information back from admissions people about whether they are able to deal with the MLR, the extra information?
Yeah, it's so challenging. We grappled with this a lot in the first year where we had I think 6 students apply, and we called all the admissions offices. I think it was 68 admissions offices. And then we kept a spreadsheet to see who got into where. And it's tough to know. I already feel like it's a mystery sometimes when they accept students and when they don't. You know, we've talked about Adam Meckel. Actually, I just saw Adam's mom this past weekend. And Adam applied to a lot of schools that he felt were, you know, they're probably reach schools, and he got into all but one of them. Then there were other students last year in particular I can think of who I was surprised when she didn't get into a particular school. And it's hard to point to a reason, yes or no. Did the MLR make an impact? It's one of the things we're grappling with now, though, is what kind of feedback are we capturing? Our work with Ally, the Applied Learning Leadership Institute, everything fits together. The work with Ally right now is a lot focused on self-efficacy and capturing self-efficacy data, and the self-efficacy that these students have through this process is really powerful. So it's a data point that we could look at, but as far as the impact on college admissions, it's hard to tell.
Good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna, when you get back, if you want to give us an update on other things happening around the school.
Aside from that, that took a long time for a while, but I guess I'm kind of moving on to the scholarship process, which is a little daunting, but counselors make it really easy. Naviance and like they're, as long as you check weekly, it's okay. Today in drama, my dog came in for his audition for Toto. He's the dog in The Wizard of Oz, which is really fun. And also the seniors are starting their proposals for one act plays, which is also really exciting. Another thing I wanted to share, which is kind of handed to me, was today in Euro, we did this thing called grievances. And so we're talking about how a while back, you know, like, I don't tell you the exact dates or times, but people would come together and they'd like state their grievances at meetings. And so he was like, Mr. McCaskey was like, all right, let's do a bunch of NITMA grievances. So like I just wanted to mention some of the stuff that everyone did, not my words, but specific things were study hall, but I know that it's in the works of being added, and that was really sad for many people because they just found out that we were gonna have a study hall after year tweet. Senior priv being 10 minutes. They want that.
What's that?
Senior priv being longer.
Not sure what that means. Okay.
And then a big topic was the money going to esports, but instead of like track or athletics. Because one of my friends, she's in cross country, and it's really bad because sometimes they'll be pouring rain out, but we don't really have a track. So they're running through Upton, like in the streets, like in the rain. And then I think they're frustrated because they see like all these new gaming chairs and PCs and like the light up keyboard, and they want more equipment. So that was also a common thing. I can't speak on that because I'm not in sports, but that was something that came up.
Thank you.
Did your dog get the Toto?
I hope so. We still need to see how he does on stage, but I think he was getting estimated to be back today. Just an intro. So we'll see where it goes.
Good luck. All right, Dr. Cohen, over to you for superintendent
Yeah,
administrator
just
report.
a short report. We have a lot of presentations tonight. Are you able to pull that up, Sam? Thanks. All right. Thanks. You could go to the next slide, please. What I did is I just have a couple updates across a few things that are happening in the district. I'm going to keep you updated at all of the meetings if new things come up related to MCAS and competency determination. We will need to put together with the policy subcommittee a draft policy language. I hope that I'll have some draft language to bring forward. I have a few meetings coming up and some examples from some other districts and all of the groups across the US, not the US, across Massachusetts are working on this, but we will need to have something related to competency determination in place and voted on. I would like to have it voted on by, February, March, the latest. That way we're able to communicate because we have a few students that might fall into the category this year that we would need to have that in place, which is local requirements that we'd identify for competency determination. In the past, it was the MCAS exam, but as of right now, if you didn't receive competency determination already by passing the MCAS, if you haven't, or if you came in late and hadn't taken, say, the science, because you weren't here in the year to take science and therefore you don't have it yet, there's no way you can take science anymore. But we're still required to have a competency determination language. So we're working on it. I'll keep you updated. I have a couple of drafts and I have a meeting coming up in a week where I'm going to be meeting with some superintendents on this. We have, every year, we have the state access testing for our English learners, and that just began today. And this is another way that we're able to, track the data of population of our students. And I know at a future meeting, we're hoping that we can have some of our English language teachers, or at least the coordinator, to be able to come and give some updates on our EL programming that we've had in place. Grant awards, I'm trying to make sure that every meeting, that if we have any recent grants that we receive in the time period between each of the meetings, I'll give you an update on that. And the first, we were awarded, and this is one of and I know I'm not stealing the thunder of the budget presentation because they have all of the grants that have been received at NITMUC, but we just were informed pretty recently by Jim Gordon that we were awarded $5,000 to help with the Student Research Symposium here at NITMUC. And today, breaking news, this afternoon, we found out that we were approved for the Innovation Careers Pathway Grant, the Part B. We had already received the Part A of the application. We just learned about Part B today. That's for $50,000, and that's for our business programming. So we'll, of course, be presenting on what that's all about and what we're, working on with that pathway as we move forward, but the pretty exciting news that we just received that today. Next slide. Thank you. One of our goals the last couple of years has been to work on expanding our showcases of learning. So anytime we have showcases of learning, I'll be sure to try to bring it forward here. We have our MISCO Semester 1 automation and robotics students will be showcasing their amusement park projects. Many of you have seen these before, at least if you've had students going through the middle school. We've often presented on it, but they get better and better every year. And for semester 1, that'll be happening in a couple weeks. One of our action steps this year is to bring in the Start with Hello program for the Sandy Hook Promise, and the student trainings are taking place this month. So I just wanted to let you know there was a notification. I know I just saw that went out to MISCO parents just this past week because that's coming up on the 7th and NITMUC's on the 15th. And I'm really excited to see, how this launches into some new programming for both the middle and the high school. And we've had this for a while, the Science of Suicide program, and that screening is taking place here at Nipmuc on the 27th for grades 9 and 11, and they will be having advisory lessons around mental wellness, building resilience for grades 10 and 12. I think that might have been in the newsletter today, but that's something else, some programming that we have. And then if we go to the last slide, again, some upcoming events in our district calendar. It happened upon this, walking through Misco today, this beautiful, hey, I said, I was with Jay, and I said, oh, I got to take a picture for the presentation today. That's great. We haven't had an art show linked to the winter concerts at the middle school before. It's always been on another day, and they're linking it together almost like that we have at the high school, and they're really excited about it. And they have a beautiful poster that they have in the main hall for that I share with you there. One of our goals also around communications under priority 4 is about increasing some of our parent nights and engagement nights. So you'll see one of them, and we have a literacy night, a parent family night that's going to be at the end of January at Memorial 2. And when other ones come up, I'll be sure to share them with you and with the community. Any questions on any of that? Yeah. All right. That's all for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really.
Did you like it? It was nice and quick, efficient.
I'm not making any comments on your previous presentation.
I don't want to steal the thunder away from our guests.
All right.
We have lots of
Come on
guests.
up, Dr. Patrick.
Actually, I'm not gonna cede the seat,
Oh.
literally. Come on up, Megan.
All right.
Over here, over there. Where would you like to be? Why don't you sit here and I'll sit right behind you,
All right.
proudly behind you. I'm delighted to introduce our district Spanish immersion coordinator, Megan Pike. To all of you who may not know her, Megan is going to provide us with a mid-year update on some of the work she's doing, leading curriculum and professional development work with our Spanish immersion teachers. And also, this is all of that she's going to present to you as a part of our curriculum review process. And it's been in partnership with Dr. Tara Fortune, who is let's see, I think it's a big long title. She's the former director of immersion research and professional development at the Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition. So super expert in immersion. And they've been really fortunate to be able to work with her and have some time together to do some of this amazing work. So thanks for being with us, Megan. Okay, I'm gonna let thank you. So are you, I'm not sure I'll be able to access the links through, but we'll try. No, because I don't know if they'll. Okay, well, okay, we'll see what happens. All right, so thank you for having me. As Dr. Kirkpatrick just introduced me, Megan Pike, district program coordinator for Spanish immersion, also a proud mom. I have a second grade Spanish immersion child at Memorial, hopefully a kindergartner next year. And then third will be in a couple years after that. Also a sixth grade teacher since 2005, Spanish immersion. So any Spanish immersion student I have had, except for the very first class. So immersion is my passion. I'm very excited to be in this role, helping the program grow. And over time, we're making a lot of progress. So if you can switch to the next slide, please. So we're working on developing a vision for Spanish immersion, and that has a lot of layers to it. The one that we're currently focusing on right now with Dr. Fortune is focusing on proficiency in the Spanish language. So these kids start in kindergarten, go all the way to 12th grade, and we want to make sure that we're able to provide them with opportunities to create and develop the highest level of proficiency possible in the Spanish language, to be both biliterate, bilingual, and to feel proud of their language skills, so they could go to a Spanish-speaking country and feel confident with what they're providing with their biliteracy. So we have this goal. That's the goal, the proficiency goal, and to achieve this goal, we have 3 questions. So the first goal is we have to define what that means. Where do we want to be? What does proficient mean? What are the steps we need to take to get there? And how are we going to know if we have gotten there? So next slide, please.
And we spoke a little bit about Dr. Fortune. She is, we've been really lucky to work with her. And as Dr. Kirkpatrick mentioned, she has a lot of years of experience in immersion, 3 decades of experience in immersion since she was an immersion educator. She started out and then she changed into this research role at Carla. And she likes to say that I know really a lot about really a little, because she has focused so much just specifically on immersion. And I've heard of her when I started teaching in 2005, I knew about her. And so it's really kind of amazing. I was a little bit almost like, I was meeting a celebrity when I met her. When I started working with her, I said, this is so cool. I'm working with Tara Fortune. So it's really great. She's written a lot of books just on immersion. She knows so much about it. And I'm really lucky and happy that she's guiding us along the way with this process. So to answer our first question, where do we want to be? That was the first thing, our first step with Dr. Fortune. She came out here in September and worked with us, and the whole Spanish immersion team sat down and we looked at the actual proficiency standards, which you can see there's a summary up there on that top right. There's a graphic that spells out the levels of proficiency in a second language with novice low at the bottom, all the way superior at the top. And so for us to be able to define where we are at all of our grade levels, we looked through a document there that spelled out what it means to be at every level. And we looked across 5 domains: interpretive reading, interpretive listening, interpersonal person to person. So it's like speaking back and forth, presentational speaking, and presentational writing. So each teacher at all the different grade levels, we were kind of going off of experience. And also we looked at research from other programs. We don't yet have a lot of data, numbered data. I'll talk about that later when I get to the last slide. We don't yet have a lot of data K through 8. We do have very limited data, grade 12, based on Apple and AP assessments. But we're going to be getting more of that also. So using the data, using the experience that the teachers have, looking at the documents from Actual, looking at I can statements, and really kind of talking about what our students are able to do with a language. We created, and I don't know, can you click on that link that says our work? I'm not sure you're going to be able to open it. Yeah, you're not. So is it okay if I screen share, or is that going to mess you up?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
I can, I might not be able to push it to.
All right. I can just summarize then. If you go back to the slide, I'll just kind of talk about what's there.
Well, you're talking.
I don't think you're going to be able to because I don't own it. It's Dr. Fortune. Yeah. So because we're still working, it's still in draft form. So yeah, so we haven't finalized it. So the links are not accessible to everyone yet. But I can just speak to what you see there. On the bottom, that graphic is a screenshot of one of the slides from that. It's a slide, it's a spreadsheet with many different tabs, one for each grade level, where we looked at all the domains and assigned proficiency levels of our students where we think they are and or should be at every grade level. And that's a summary of K through 8. And we created a color code. So you can see that green is novice, and then there's different shades of green. So you have novice low, novice mid, novice high. And then intermediate is blue. So there's 3 different levels of that as well. And 8th grade, we did not get to the advanced level. We're hoping that at the NIPMUC over time, using the assessment, we're going to be able to really see that students are going to be getting to the advanced low. Dr. Fortune has shared with us that it's very rare for students to get to advanced mid or high. In any world language immersion program, we really have to live in that country for a long time to get to what she says, even native speakers of English, it's very rare for you to get to advanced high. Like you and I are not at advanced high. We're definitely not at superior. So anyway, but
just to clarify, are these targets or actuals?
Those are targets and actuals. So the goal is this is going to be our target. So this is going to be a document that we're over time. It's in draft form still. Over time, it's going to be where we're going to be assessing our students using assessments that I'm going to talk about on 2 slides. And we're going to see, are our students at this level? So for now, to give us a start, we have said, okay, this is where we believe our students are at now. And then once we get this assessment program, we're going to be making adjustments based on assessments and where we think our student, and it will be where our students should be. So if our students are not at those levels, then we're going to say, oh, you know what, the student, our first grade student should be at a novice mid, and he's only testing in a novice low. So we're going to have to help the student in the domain of interpretive reading.
So where's the seal of biliteracy come in?
So
at which level?
The seal of biliteracy is at the high school level. So Hannah, have you done that yet already? Can you speak to it or?
Yes, so the seal of literacy, we automatically get, I'm pretty sure. I've asked my teachers extensively to make sure, because I want to make sure I can put it on my college outline. But if you get a 4 or 5 on the AP exam, it considers you for the seal of literacy, also through the national Spanish course.
And did you do Apple testing or not yet? Okay, so I think you're a senior. Senior?
Do I have to do that?
I'm not sure exactly. I think that you will be, is what I understand. I think all seniors do it in the spring. But I'll talk to, we'll talk to Ms. Maloney about that. So yeah, but the seal of biliteracy, it comes in the high school level.
So
senior
it's
year.
like they achieve advanced.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They get it in the AB test, it's a 4 or 5, and then the Apple testing, I'm not sure. I think it goes to advanced levels there. Okay, so that is how we define where we want to be. So now our next step was, what are we going to do to be able to achieve those targets for all of our students in grades K through 8, and K through 12, eventually we'll get to mapping those out as well. So Dr. Fortune is now, this is the step we're working on now. We're doing a grammar scope and sequence. Sorry, not grammar. It's just a scope and sequence for all the Spanish immersion program, and incorporates many different aspects. So on the document, which we won't be able to open, but there's a summary there, and I'll just explain I'll explain what is on the document. You can see there's a little screenshot there of side by side. Probably can't read it because it's small, but it's side by side our Massachusetts ELA standards. And I think this came from the first grade. So again, it's an Excel document with all tabs for all the different grade levels, K through 8. And in the first grade level, there's ELA standards. And then right next to it, we lined up California, because California is one of the few states that has translated those. This is Common Core language arts standards. They're one of the few states that have translated them into Spanish, but not only just word for word translations into Spanish. You can see where there's red and blue font on those columns on the right. The red it's a standard that is specific only to the English language, and the blue is something that is some aspect of the standard that is only present in the Spanish language. So we've kind of made not only just literal translation of the standard, but also what you have to focus on differently because you're doing this in Spanish. So California did a really nice job. So we lined up our Massachusetts standards with the California Spanish language arts standards to kind of have on the document for each grade level what we're going to be focusing on in Spanish, and having it, showing that we're also meeting the need for the Massachusetts standard at each grade level. So that was the first step. We lined those up side by side. Our next steps are we're going to be adding in specific Spanish grammar that we're going to be focusing on at every grade level. That's one thing that really we could focus on as a program and improve, is mapping out over time how our Spanish grammar can really be streamlined and have it be in an organic manner that every aspect of the grammar is focused and taught explicitly at each grade level. And having it on this document side by side next to the standards will really make that more streamlined. Teachers coming in will look at it and say, okay, I understand the standard I'm responsible for teaching, and also I know what my students need to learn as far as Spanish grammar during this school year. And in addition, we're going to be adding in interdisciplinary units. So Dr. Fortune really has stressed that it's important to focus on these language arts standards, but also incorporate them into science and social studies units. For me, it's simple because that's what I teach in 6th grade, is science and social studies. The elementary teachers also teach science and social studies, but she really encourages us to look at our science and social studies units and really pull the standards, really through the content, teach those standards. So we're going to be adding those units into our document as well. In addition to that document, so that document is very, very in-depth. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort that we've been doing as a team, and we're going to continue doing through the year. Who knows when it'll be complete, but we've been making a lot of progress on it. But in addition, we also have been able to work with Dr. Fortune to learn about some of the best practices. She's shared a lot about immersion teaching, and we've learned a lot of skills and best practices for the immersion classroom from her. She's also given us recommendations for special education, how we can really support those students with special education needs in the program. And these are things we're looking at now and in the future, ways that we can improve that aspect of the program. We are coming up on a new cycle for curriculum resources. So we are now thinking about and considering other resources and programs that we could incorporate into our program. So Tara Fortune is giving us guidance on what characteristics are good for different curriculum resources. And that will help us when we're moving forward into selecting the next curriculum program. And then also things like she looked at the model, the program structure, and pointed out that, you know what, we really could use some more time in Spanish at the middle school level. So now we're looking to how we can do that. I know we're thinking of changing the schedule at the middle school. We're trying to see how we're going to be able to add more Spanish in. And that's something that we're going to work towards as well. And then additionally, with her encouragement and administration's encouragement, we've been reaching out to other Spanish immersion programs. I've been touching base with Loper School in Wayland and also the school in, thank you. Yes, in Millis. And we've been making connections, and I've been reaching out to them and collaborating about resources, their ideas about policies and practices as well. So it's great to work with teammates. You know, Mendon-Upton, we've been around for a long time, but there's a lot of other programs around that we could be collaborating with and working as a team. Thank you. And so the last question is, how will we know if we've gotten there? So this is where the new assessment that we're hoping to acquire, K through 12. It's called the Apple. We are currently using it for all world language students at the high school level. And we would really love to incorporate it into our lower grades. We can't know if what the proficiency level of our students are if we don't have an assessment. Of course, you know, as teachers, we know our students. So we have what we call street data. But it would be really great to have a standardized test that would follow these kids K through 12, and we can track their proficiency and really see the strides that they're making with their Spanish language skills. So we are now tasked with that's the wrong word. We get to create a sample. We get to create a schedule. So, and Cheryl and Maureen have been really great to work with. And Cheryl is, you know, she's the curriculum guru at our school, and she's been looking into budgeting for this for us. So we now have to come up with a plan. Tara Fortune has shared with us this sample schedule that Utah has created about when to test the different domains and all the different grade levels. So we are going to look at this. We're going to talk to other districts that maybe also use this in their Spanish immersion programs. And we're going to come up with a plan for, again, if we use it now only in grade 12, we're going to come up with a plan on when we're going to use the testing in all the levels K through 12. And then with that, we will then see how we're doing with those targets, maybe revise the target color code and say, you know what, we really should tweak this and we should be here. Expectations are a little high here, or maybe, you know, they could do better, or our students actually can do even better than we thought. So we're going to be constantly revising and updating, and it's really exciting work. Very happy to be a part of it.
Before you guys ask her questions, can I just bookend this a little bit? Just to kind of like pat her and the team on the back. I mean, really, like we work in a district where our teacher leaders, our teachers are leading the curriculum work. So they're teaching every day, and they're doing analysis that the state has done for, in this case, all the rest of our departments, right? And so when you have an immersion program that is like trying to identify progressions and lay it out in a scope and sequence and identify assessments, that's something that's needed and like is stuff that this group has completely generated on their own. And I think it's just really important to kind of like shout out that work that they're doing. And it's also the work that other departments are doing too. There's a lot of behind the scenes, and how do we kind of think about what's next for us and in creating a vision for these departments. So tremendous work, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you.
All that, and she's been taxed as well.
I get to.
When she presented this information at the, I mean, I'm on the periphery and like we've had updated meetings, whatever, but at the last Spanish advisory meeting, she presented the actual spreadsheets and the work and how much you were there, right? And it was amazing so many colors. We love the colors, but how it would the progress that they've made so far this year. That's why we definitely bring her forward right now, just to say, because they've made tremendous progress. I know we've talked about it. And for the Apple that is in the budget request currently. When, you know, Cheryl comes forward in the future, you'll see it listed to see if we can bring this into our K-8 in order to support this work. But again, thank you.
Thank you.
So, so we don't currently have standardized testing except at the 12th grade level. How do we build, that sort of assessment today or past?
So I think there's some at the elementary level, right? what is it, Idels, Dibbles?
Yeah,
Cheryl, can you speak about it, please?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a complementary assessment that's like an early literacy assessment that's complementary to the DIBELS, basically, that can be administered in Spanish as well. At the very early, at the early grades and also serves as a complement if a student doesn't do very well in the DIBELS because they're not being instructed in Spanish immersion in English, which isn't unusual in many cases. They'll get the Spanish version just so that we can kind of compare assessments. So that helps at the elementary level. But your question's a good one, Matt. And but here's where we're at. Like a lot of the assessments that we do are really kind of classroom level. And we all know that in terms of standardization, that like assessment varies. So the Apple could be a way for us to kind of like in a measured way, not like every year like the MCAS, but provide some type of benchmark standardization for the program.
And just to add on to that, so the assessments that Cheryl spoke about are really literacy. And you can see that this assessment tests and shows proficiency in many different domains. So listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So it really is a bigger picture of their Spanish language skills, not just their reading comprehension.
I'm just thinking, especially because I know a number of the Spanish immersion teachers come over from Spain for a set period and then they have to replace that after 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. It's a lot of churn in a program that we don't have a kind of base level common assessment that outlives their tenure. It seems like that's a lot of variability and
right. No, you're absolutely right. And we're blessed to work with the Spanish embassy and to have these native speakers that are all amazing teachers to come here, and the quality of the teaching is excellent. But they're limited to 3 or 5 years. I mean, most of them have been staying for 5 years, so that's great. But this is an effort to make that more streamlined and to really make consistency to show the students are here longer than 3 to 5 years when the teachers are not necessarily going to be here. So this will follow them K through 12.
Another thing that's important too is, we're in an age of technology where like it's easy to translate curricular resources. So like we have iReady, and iReady is translatable into Spanish. But the challenge that presents for an immersion program is the program is a language acquisition program. And so even though you can translate it at certain grade levels, it doesn't really give you what you're looking for in terms of the assessment for the language acquisition. So the Apple, again, I think is an interesting instrument to kind of explore that.
And it's where we've struggled over the last number of years. So you said you're surprised we don't necessarily have something. We piloted different types of assessments, prior to Megan with previous, coordinators. We brought in, hey, let's try this. It hasn't worked. We only have had iReady in place for the last, I think since 2020-ish. So we're really heading into like our 5th year of it. And in that we tried iReady where we wanted to make sure they all were screened, but that didn't necessarily work because it was in English, right? And then we tried the Spanish one that didn't necessarily work at all the grade levels. We piloted some others. So we do feel, even though we do our unit assessments, et cetera, we do feel that the Apple might be especially with the alignments with the targets might be the best approach next. Because there aren't, and especially here in our region too, there are a lot of immersion programs. So not a lot of people have set assessments, like benchmark assessments like we do with iReady.
I will say I've got 2 girls in Spanish immersion in 1st grade, and my wife and I read or read with the girls every single night, and they still can read Spanish better than English. So they're doing a great job.
That's awesome.
One pet peeve on question 1, looking at it very quickly, compared to the scale, the novice is blue but it's green on your target and it's kind of reversed. So I looked at it very quickly and I was like, wait a minute.
I'm
So,
sorry, what?
so the novice is blue on the scale.
Oh, yes.
So looking at it very quickly, I was like,
That was my question about, is this a target or actuals? I was
Yeah.
getting that same.
No, that's green.
Oh,
upside down.
man.
so
Yeah, we didn't call, so, yeah, that's strange. See, because I don't know why. You know
when I
what?
looked at it.
I came
read
up
it,
with
I was
this
like,
color
okay,
code and I'm a skier, so you know, green circles, blue is intermediate. So,
And I looked at it, I was like, okay, this makes more sense. The words.
I'm on the green trail tonight.
the green, yeah.
All right.
So you got Mrs. Maloney involved, as you said in your chart, right? So does that mean that some of these ideas are getting propagated into the other language departments as well?
Yes, so actually many world language teachers came to our September meeting and they were really excited about this proficiency stuff because they're already using it at the high school world language department and immersion as well. But so because ACTFL is a world language, originally a world language program, but Spanish immersion also uses those proficiency standards. And that's the cool thing about the Apple testing is that it really lines up with the ACTFL standards. They're made for each other. So Trish Maloney and the other high school teachers are very excited about all of this work with Spanish immersion as well, as it kind of lines up with what they do.
I guess another question kind of regarding the targets. So these are the targets for their Spanish acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have similar targets for their English language progression as well? Because especially if you're not instructing them K through the second grade, I think it's 100% Spanish, right? You would expect them, and I think they say this during the kindergarten information night that the English will lag behind, but then they'll catch up once they start getting you wouldn't expect a second grader to be on grade level in their English reading because they're not instructed.
Correct.
So I think it would be good to have a similar chart of where you expect them to be in their English progression as well. And so that you're evaluating them whether it's DIBELS or MCAS or whatever. I know that they're at least you have the standardized testing, but a defined set of goals of where you expect them to be and when you expect them to catch up to their peers in English.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Probably a comprehensive plan.
Right.
And that's kind of where my girls are now. We're in that, they're expected to be behind in English and we're trying to keep them up with all of their peers, but at the same time, they're,
Yeah.
the expectation.
What grade is it
First
again?
grade.
First grade. Okay, my daughter's in second grade, so I know what you mean. Yeah. But I see they are tested in English, starting in third grade with MCAS, correct? And then they'll be tested in English forever and ever, all the time after that. So there are constant assessments. As far as creating a target thing like this, I don't know. This was created for second language learners because if you look, the domains are interpersonal, person to person is one of the things. That's about how they talk to each other, that your kids have no trouble communicating in English, right? It's really the it's really the reading and writing that is what catches up, but the talking is no trouble, right, in English at all. At least for my daughter. My daughter doesn't stop talking in any language. And then, so I don't know, I guess we could take a look at the data, really.
Well, I'll just add.
Thank you, Sharon.
So this is another question that is on our radar, and it's one that I think is I think when parents are choosing a Spanish immersion program is one that they want to have some sense of what the general trends are, and hopefully know that every child is individual in terms of their trajectory. So what we wouldn't want to do is kind of set benchmarks that would lead a parent to think, oh my goodness, this is because the Spanish immersion program is about language acquisition, and we want to be able to embrace the science that language acquisition will translate once a student gets to a certain level. But we do want to be able to share with parents that the general trajectory that yes, indeed, the Spanish immersion students do end up at the same place that their English speaking peers are on the English assessments ultimately. And so that's stuff that we're working on internally to be able to present.
So the reason I specifically asked that question is I remember when my daughter's in third grade now, I think, was entering kindergarten 4 years ago, before she moved into the Spanish immersion parents thing. UK parents thing. Somebody asked that, and that was the answer we got. But yeah, they fall behind, but then they catch up. And I think someone asked, like, basically, can you quantify that? And do you have data that supports it? And the answer is somebody does, but they couldn't like direct us to any specific, whether it's a study or cast data or whatever.
Well, where it's becoming easier now, Matt, than like a couple of years ago or what have you, is that we do actually have like the subscribing to Spanish immersion as a variable in Open Architects right now. And so we've been able to employ that to be able to kind of generate some analyses that will like identify those kids. But prior to that, like a couple of years ago, that was challenging for us.
I will say, I mean, in the past, there was, they were able to pull MCAS data and point to the idea that the Spanish immersion kids not only caught up in fourth grade, but in many cases exceeded their learning peers. So that
We did do reports, like we pulled out the MCAS, and we would do reports on that showed that they, excelled. Yeah.
But to Cheryl's point, I do think there is a little bit of an element of a leap of faith in this program. And I can, just from a personal anecdote, I had 2 children. One came in like to kindergarten reading, so her English was ahead. The other one lagged behind, but we did like eventually catch up and surpass. So, and if somebody had handed me data in second grade showing me how far behind they were, I think I would have, there was that little bit of struggle, like, do you stay with it? Do you not stay with it? So I do think, there is that element of you got to believe that they are going to get there.
And as a 6th grade teacher, I do see it already happening. Like my students are really excelling in English and Spanish. So.
And obviously just the communication, again, it goes back to the communication with the teacher. If you're concerned, you got to check in and make sure they're getting where they need to be.
Teaching them the difference between E and I in Spanish and English.
No. No. It is funny.
I just wanted to hop in with a comment. I remember it was 5 or 6 years ago, sitting in a weekend workshop about the Spanish immersion program and talking about some of these things. So seeing it start to come together like this is awesome. So much needed, the assessments, and also, in terms of supporting special education needs. I'm looking forward to hearing more about some of those recommendations, because those were, I just remember 2 areas, that we kind of pulled out that we needed to address. So it's really nice to see this. It was awesome.
And also a huge thank you to all of the work that you guys put together, putting together that document for people coming overseas and just facilitating it. I mean, that's just, I'm sure, super helpful.
That was a group effort. A lot of parents were involved in that, and administrators and teachers. It was a team effort for sure. But thank you.
Now, one last comment since we're kind of put in there, but the program's been awesome. We have 2 kids that have gone through it. They're in it, I guess is the right word. And I just remember when, before they entered kindergarten, I was really against it. I'll be honest, my wife was for it. And I ended up doing, reading like this much material about bilingual and both sides of the brain and this and that. And finally, when it was all said and done, I came to the simple realization, just from a family, it's like, well, you've got 1 day to enter the program and 5,000 days to exit the program. Like, let's go ahead and do this. And then just a quick example, this was like my older son, 5 or 6 years into it, and we were down at Disney in Mexico. And he's talking to the person in Spanish. And the person said to me, where did your son learn Spanish? I said, that's cool. So no, we're back and forth. He goes, his dialect is American kids who learn Spanish as a second language never get the dialect. And he goes, it's amazing how your boys have the dialect. So explain the immersion program. But thank you. And I just want to make one more comment. Thank you for all your leadership in this. I know we've had some great leaders before you, Joan Scribner, and get going. I think there was a little lull maybe for a while, and I appreciate you grabbing the program and continuing to strive with Cheryl and team. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been awesome. Thank you.
All right.
have sisters that are, one of my sisters is in the Spanish immersion program, and my other two are both here in Toronto. And I just wanted to say that I feel like they're both, even though like I've seen before, I feel like they're at relatively similar levels. I think it could be because my sister that's in the Spanish immersion program does love to read outside of school. But I think I can say with certainty that like I know that me and my other Spanish immersion friends, like we are with everyone else, like we're not behind anybody. Like I feel like if we were to make the graph with the English benchmarks, it might discourage some people from participating in the program because they would just see that and they would think that they're behind in English. But I mean, I feel like the pros of knowing Spanish are so much more. Like I went to Dominican Republic and they actually gave me that same thing that you said your son did at Disney Mexico. I also had the same experience actually. Like, oh wow, you're acting so good. I was like, oh really, thanks. Like, and they asked, where did you learn Spanish? And it's the whole thing. Like, but you say it all in Spanish. I learned it at school. We had a Spanish immersion program. And it's like, I think even if they're behind for a few years, which I don't know, it's I don't know how. I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm cocky, but I feel like I wasn't that much behind because I also would love to read outside of school. Not everyone does, but I think it's worth it. So.
Thank you. Sure. Jay, want to talk about some numbers?
I actually don't have a lot to say about those. I shared with you the year-to-date things. We're on track where I expect us to be at this time of year, but I did not like put together some flashy pictures and slides for this because we're going to talk about facilities later.
Sounds good.
If anybody has any questions or saw anything that you don't understand, feel free to ask.
Nothing for me.
Track.
All right, when we bring back up our Nipmuc principles, we'll talk about Nipmuc budget.
Just making sure anyone's voting.
Fair.
There.
Thanks, Sam, for getting the presentation up. We'll walk you through our budget, our initial pass with the budget. No real surprises here, a continuation of the work, kind of like our school goals, but we're excited to share that with you. We know that the budget process begins almost as soon as the students walk through the door. We start thinking about the next year in September and October. You can hit the next slides in. And department chairs submit to us a budget in just before Thanksgiving that we review and then submit off to Maureen and Jay for their consideration. Next slide, you can see at the forefront of all of our work, we try and make sure that we keep our strategic plan and our beliefs about learning at the center of it. We chose this for the presentation tonight because we really do believe this is the heart and soul of our district and our school, that we are constantly working to get to know, celebrate, value, and nurture our students through their time at Nipmuc. On the next slide, you can see an overview of the process that I just mentioned with department collaboration, teacher feedback to the teacher leaders, and then it makes its way over to us. It's collaborative all the way through with us bringing it to Cheryl, Maureen, and Jay in order to get their feedback. And so we can talk on the next slide a little bit about some of the return on investments that we've had here at Nipmuc. You see a common theme across each of those areas. It's about making learning more authentic, more tailored to the needs of the individual, more connected to the world beyond our campus. Everything from the role that you fund of the Career Community Innovations Coordinator, which runs so much of this work, including our internship program, ICPs, the freshman seminar course, which introduces the POL, the support that we've had in providing RSS program and staff members who take the lead on analyzing student data in a variety of new ways in order to make sure we understand our kiddos really well and we're meeting their needs, all the way down to transportation. I'll point out and give kudos to Jay and also to Ken and his crew for the work they do with the transportation. Having the vans has been a game changer for us. Took a quick look at the sign in, sign out data before we got here. Since last January, I think we have 107 trips logged. And this was the first year using it. So I'm guessing that there were a few missed along the way. 107 trips logged. Every time a bus leaves the yard, you're looking at $350. So somewhere on a conservative estimate of $40,000 in savings right there just from using the vans in order to transport our students. And we know, for instance, this winter, I think we have 6 to 8 trips to Reggie Lewis Center planned for our track athletes. Those alone are $800 buses for the day. So that investment is a huge game changer for us, not only the big trips like that, but the day-to-day support of our student support services as they make their way out to the community. And we're going to touch on the biggest return on investment, our staff, in just a few moments when we get to the grants. We can talk a little bit about reductions, reallocations, and efficiencies on the next slide. Rather than giving you a detailed department by department breakdown, we gave you the average this year. I know you've seen the departmental breakdown. It is consistent from last year. We're frugal. We know how to make sure that we're spending our money well. $8,321 is the current average before we've made any of those reductions that we know always come as part of the process in whittling down in order to make sure we're spending the money well. Our teachers stretch their funds, use it smartly, and request wisely, and we're fortunate for that. We are highlighting a reduction in programming this year for FY26. We know that we are preparing to phase out French as one of our 3 languages. It's a sad situation for us that we are doing that. We have a phenomenal teacher, Kate DeMaio, who stepped in and has been doing a great job. There is interest in French. It is taught well. It is a meaningful course and subject. However, we have 532 students at the high school right now. We know that next year we're anticipating this small 8th grade to be a small 9th grade of somewhere around 900. And if we look at having a school of around 500 of enrollment, feasibly offering 3 languages is a challenge. So right now we have Spanish, Italian, and French. And we recognize that it's probably too much of a challenge in order to continue to offer those 3 languages. So we are planning for FY26 to have a reduction of the French program. Having support for those students, we have been looking at this over the course of the 2-year process. So students in last year's course registration process understood what their options were, knew that it was likely that French would be phased out at the end of this year. And so we're making decisions in an informed manner about whether or not they should take that course, start over on a Spanish one, or find a different way to approach world language. We included some of the reallocations and the reductions from the past in this slide as well, including the shifting of a science position to support class size at Memorial and some of the reductions in the past. We don't put those up there to say, woe is me, but we do want to also sort of mark that those positions were once here and then are no longer in the budget. We understand the realities of enrollment. And when I started here, I can remember being in the first classroom, the first teacher didn't have his own classroom, and then sharing a bullpen with, I think, 8 other teachers who didn't have their classroom because we were so filled, busting at the seams with 8 through 12. The demographics of our community have changed a bit. And so as we've responded to that, we have to also make sure that our positions and our offerings respond to that as well.
John, can I ask you one question just before we go too far, if you mind? First at the end, when you get to the department request, Jay, I know money doesn't grow on trees, but I'm going to kind of flip the other way. Do you think, are you ever worried that we're too frugal? Like, I mean, do we have enough supplies in the chemistry room? Do we have enough? Are we at the point where we're a $41 million budget? Are we ever at the point where we're cutting 20K of a $40 million budget and we feel like we're losing out on a learning opportunity because of it?
Yeah, these are conversations we have with our chairs. There's a sense of sort of learned frugality and not requesting something if you don't think you're going to get it. Our teachers have not gone through a process of requesting things that are pie in the sky, knowing it's going to get cut. Yeah. And so there are some times where we're encouraging them to think about, well, where are you at with this resource or not? But you mentioned science and chemistry specific. Last year, Jim Gorman's budget was approved for a little over $13,000. This year, he requested $16,000. And in the process of making the request, put in must-have, medium priority, kind of a be nice to have, I forget how we labeled it, which we appreciate because we want to be able to hear those requests that are on the would be nice to have. Oftentimes they stem into things that are really important to the program. And for us, and you'll see this at the end when we get to the sort of the last slide, the addition of grants that Mary Ann's going to talk about in a minute in innovation career pathways, the development of new courses. Somewhere along the way, we're going to have to make a decision as a district if we want to keep that funding available without the grants there to support it. And I think that's the time we'll be having a conversation about increasing departmental budgets in order to continue and sustain programs that began with grant funding.
Thank you. Sure.
Honestly, a lot of the larger requests are coming in the form of transportation to our staff is looking for as we talk more about authentic learning opportunities of getting our students off campus. And so we talk about the savings of the things from the van that always existed, but now there's this new opportunity to start to get students off campus into places of business more frequently. So we're excited about that because buses are not cheap these days, but our kids are always excited to get off campus. So we thought we'd highlight a little bit of kind of the grants because that is supplementing our budget in a variety of different ways, particularly in math science, but in a lot of the authentic learning work that we're doing as well. So kind of goes back just so you can kind of track what we've been doing. So Innovation Career Pathways, we were first funded in FY23 with a computer science planning grant. So that came in at $25,000 and the Blackstone Valley Ed Foundation supplemented that with another $5,000. Since then, last year, we received $75,000 to support computer science and business. Computer science was in its first full year, business was in the planning year. And then this year we just received our $50,000, which you heard Maureen talk about at the opening of the meeting. And that's to support second year of computer science pathway, first year of the business pathway. In addition, we have an additional $15,000 coming to us for a science pathways planning grant. So this is our planning year. So next year would be the year we kick off a healthcare pathway. And environmental science pathway would be the two additionals coming. And so when we're looking at kind of all of those pathways and funding, some of it is going to new courses, some of it's going to professional development, some of it's going to stipends, some of it's going to the equipment that is going to live in these classrooms to provide the kind of the environment or the services that our students need to engage in that work. So over the course of the last 3 years, the state has been very gracious with their money. Additionally, from the state, we have received last year and this year what is called a MyCap grant. MyCap is my career and academic plan grant. This aligns to the work we're doing as we talk about the student's portrait of a learner journey, kind of what are those elements that they need kind of outside of the traditional classroom experience in order to make sure that they're prepared. So some funding in there, the journey wall that you saw, career fairs that we do, some health and wellness programming and events for our teachers there, as well as the committee organizing that work. Skills Capital Grant, we applied for this last year. It was for FY25. We were supposed to find out mid-July. Our fingers are crossed. Check the grant site. Literally probably 2 to 3 times a month. This is a grant that would support the redesign of our media center. So our media center is just as old as the school, while not as old as some of the other buildings, looking to create a space that's focused on career and technical kind of work, but like a malleable area to support these pathways and coming in. So professionals can come in, do labs, do lessons, do other things in that area. Career programming can happen in that area. It can be a space for the outside community to come in and use it. Right now it's carpeted, it's pretty stagnant in terms of space. The tables weigh a ton. Ken knows that with his guys moving them around. But to have a space that could be updated would be really exciting for us. So we will keep you updated on that, but that would be the redesign of that space. And the additional grants column, you see the Ed Foundation for Blackstone Valley, the Mendon-Upton Ed Foundation, Allies, the Applied Learning Leadership Institute that John spoke about earlier. That's focused on our work with authenticity. And of course, we're fortunate to have Darcy, History Teacher of the Year. She has not spent that grant funding yet, so I don't know exactly what it's going to, but there's funding coming in from there as well. The next one, this is kind of hats off to our science department led by Jim Gorman, who is doing some incredible work across the state and obviously came with the recognition of STEM Teacher of the Year, but has worked to form partnerships within our community. Josh Garvey, who is a parent who works with Clear Plan, and Christina Zanatis, who is associated with National Defense Industrial Association, have been very gracious with their funds in supporting some of the work to get our students to NASA conferences, to share their work, to get the supplies needed to build their CubeSats that are going up on launches. That final column all the way to the right are 2 trips that have not happened yet. One is to get our kids up to the CubeSat Developers Conference. Is it named?
It's hard to follow everything Jim Gorman is doing sometimes. He hasn't come forward to school committee yet for approval, but will be coming,
I
so.
think that was San Luis Obispo, California, so you'll be.
Oh,
hearing
that was California. And then the ISS rideshare mission, which would be getting our students devices up from Cape Canaveral, Florida into the next launch there. So just awesome stuff happening. Max IQ has been an amazing partner. They partnered to host the Global Climate Challenge here. They are out of South Africa. They flew here to be a part of that. That is a partnership that Jim developed probably 4 years ago now. And they're just awesome partners in the world of space and education and really contributing the funds to get students excited about science. And they believe that space gets kids really excited about science. And I think proof of concept is in the work that our students are doing here. So that's all really exciting.
Get to the next page and I speak on return on investment. You never want to think of staff as an investment of that kind. At the same time, anytime we can thank you for the support you've given in hiring new folks. We have Darcy Daniels and Jim Gordon, 2 teachers of the year in different subject matters. Both came into Nipmuc as veteran teachers with experience under their belt. And we were given the opportunity to invest in them and bring them on as opposed to bringing someone at a master step 1. And I think we can see not only the dollars that they're bringing in, but way more importantly, the impact they're making on our kids. Our staff is our greatest strength. We know that. There's no more important investment than the people who work with our kids every day. The other strengths that you see in the slide are kind of the through line of helping our students figure out their story, telling a new story of success, using mastery, connecting it with the internship program, innovation career pathways. Everything feels connected and with this sense of authenticity, portrait of the learner, and connections beyond campus at the heart, at the true north of our compass. Areas for growth, building infrastructure around this. So looking for outside opportunities for out of school learning experiences, expanding our use of data, which we'll be excited to get in front of you and talk a little bit about how we are using open architects. We're doing a whole student review of the 10th grade, a whole grade level for the first time here on January 17th. Through Cheryl's leadership, along with help from Ryan, the platforms are there. Through our S3 team, the supports are there. And working with our school counseling department, we feel like we've made huge progress in that as well. At the same time, it's an area for growth for us. So we put it up on the area for growth. Building that infrastructure of community partnerships, and then also expanding tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. That goes along with the whole child review, and our JED high school team is doing an amazing job right now. We've had several meetings focused specifically on tier 2 interventions, building that set of opportunities that are available to help kids. And we're making a lot of progress. So invite us back. I'm trying to talk quickly because I know you got a lot on the agenda tonight, but I may need a little more time for that one as we talk about the interventions we're putting in place for kiddos. So.
Good. So investment requests, Arnachani spoke to the first one a little bit, getting our kids off campus. For our juniors and seniors, sometimes that they can drive to get to where they're going, but buses are about $1,600 for 50 kids to get off campus. The vans definitely help for the smaller trips. An example, Darcy Daniels, our history teacher of the year, she, her side job over the summer does tours of the Freedom Trail. And so we have an expert here that if we can get our kids to Boston, invest in that transportation, we have a free, amazing tour guide for our kids to kind of walk and live the history. You're surprised how many students have never done the Freedom Trail once they get to us. And then some updated textbooks. We haven't had a textbook request in a little while. Math are coming up. AP Psychology just are outdated in terms of College Board. And as our business programming is kind of expanding with the Innovation Career Pathway, we need some additional resources to support that. And then long-term projects, we put further down the road, like not next year, but we need to start thinking about it. As our pathways continue to expand, our business department is a department of 2. And they can't teach everything and do everything. You know, they are taking on the accounting. Maybe that can go into the math department. We'll get creative about some things, but it will definitely attract more students over time, and the need for staffing further down the road. Facilities, I'm sure Jay will cover all of these lovely things. Replacement of the roof is coming, carpet, tile, furniture, obviously field auditorium. They're things that we've talked about over the years. And then instructional resources, we just talked about the textbooks. And then short term, there's this sense of like, we hope that Department of Education continues to fund the innovation pathways at the rate they're funding it. But at some point, and math department, computer science, they use Project Lead the Way resources. And so we're funding a lot of the resources and consumables through that grant every year. So there is the potential that needs to be brought into our budget. So I say short term, it could be long term. Department of Ed doesn't give us any sort of sense of how long the funding will last. And that is it. Questions?
I just want to recognize like being able to recruit and retain top talent like Jim Gorman and Darcy. It's phenomenal. It's a testament to your guys' skill. One thing it kind of jumped out at me is getting rid of French and keeping Italian as far as native speakers worldwide. I would think there's more French. So what's the logic there, and does the Italy field trip like play into that? What's the logic there?
So I think there's a lot of variables. We've had consistent staffing for a number of years in French, and that has kind of gone away. And so when our last French teacher left, there was a gap of time before we were able to find anyone certified to teach French. So there are not a lot of French teachers that are out there. There are a lot of school districts, if you look around, that are on the search for a French teacher. And so our enrollment has wavered. And when you only have a single teacher teaching it, you can only feed in one class per year. And if there's matriculation out of that, right, the numbers start to waver. So it's a little bit of a numbers game in terms of what is maintained. We have 2 Italian teachers that have really strong numbers and a strong interest in Italian, whether because they go to Italy, because they love their teachers, a whole wide variety of things play into that. But it is the least sustainable at only having kind of one section of it, and knowing that should anything happen with staffing, it is very challenging to replace that. Our kids went for quite some time without a French teacher, unfortunately, in between staffing.
And Jim, have you tried to speak French?
I took 6 years of French.
I knew I could staff for that.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Budget presentation, first facilities.
I've been waiting all night.
Ken, you want to come up here or you want to stay in the back? Grab,
Just pull that up, sure.
Jay, it's on the podium, right?
no, I don't. The podium is reserved specific.
Only-
All right, so facilities. What do I have? First of all, you guys all know Ken, I hope.
I know
Ken is our director of buildings and grounds. All right, so we look at facilities and the maintenance budget. You know, it's not just about taking care of the building. It's about the aesthetics of the building. It's about ensuring that we have a safe environment for teachers to teach. It's our quote of the day. You know, the goal here is that buildings need to be clean, they need to be functioning. And so that's really the priority that we look at here. As far as how we develop this process, Ken and I meet probably, if not every day, probably 4 out of 5 days. Ken's in my office telling me all the various projects going on. So I have a pretty good handle on what's going on. He has a way better handle on what's going on. So we look at what we're spending, what things that are going, what's breaking down. We try to look and project those costs for the following year. And then we constantly look for ways to try and save money, because the one thing I will say is that maintaining the buildings is getting more expensive every day. I used to say that every time Ken walked in my office, it was $10,000. Now it's 20. So things cost. So we're constantly looking for ways to see if we can be more efficient and use our money better. Sometimes we can't, but we do the best we can. As far as return on investments, we kind of, again, we look at maintenance not really as an investment that we're going to get, like, you know, if we invest 10,000, we're going to get 20,000. We try to make sure that we have buildings that are functioning. So we do have routine maintenance things that we do every single year, cleaning the boilers, inspections on all the various systems that run in this building. Ken is kind of oversees all that stuff. One of the biggest things we've been dealing with lately is water testing. But we constantly are looking at all the various things and, trying to make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to work. So we do routine inspections like that. What that returns to us is by inspecting them and trying to correct the problems before they become problems, we don't have to spend more money later to fix the problems that we didn't pay attention to. As far as stuff that we have done over the last, let's go on to the next one, Sam. Oh, we are, okay. No, sorry, I'm not reading well. We've done a lot of projects over probably the last 10 years. This is all that I could come up with that I could remember by memory just in the last probably year and a half. The water treatment systems we've talked about ad nauseum, but we've done carpets and tiles in all the schools, more at Misco than anywhere else. The gym floors, we just did the water meter here where we had to shut down the water for several days in order to replace all of the infrastructure behind it. There's lots of things that we've done that are not hitting our capital list. They're things that we've covered within our operational budget or with savings at the end of the year where we say, all right, we've got a little bit of money left. Let's fix this or let's fix that. The stage floor in Misco was one last year where we had some extra money. And, that stage floor was probably the floor that Eric spent time on when he was in school, right?
Absolutely.
Most recently this year, we just did an LED upgrade again. Now, we did this several years ago. You'll notice how like those lights over there every now and then will go off because they're all smart bulbs that are on timers. So if there's no activity, the lights dim down. That's saving us electricity, and we're estimating right now that that's going to save us quite a bit. The vans have saved us money. It's not really a maintenance thing, but it's other things that we've done. We've relocated the before and after school programs from Misco to Memorial and Club, because that's where those kids go to school. That saved us a little bit on busing, but there was some expense to get the room set up and the spaces set up. These are all the things that we work on a regular basis, and Ken and I kind of work and talk on. Why isn't it going on for me? Let's see. All right. As far as efficiencies and things, one of the things we've done recently, we have been on an electricity supply contract for the last 3.5, 4 years. We were paying 9.6 cents a kilowatt, which is an unheard of rate. Now, we do have all this solar net metering that offsets that, but we still have a price we have to pay that National Grid charges us. So we have a contract like that. Right now, National Grid supply cost is about 14.5. We just signed a new contract for the next 3 years at 12 cents a kilowatt. Again, that's just going to save us money. The combination of that and the lighting, which is the third bullet there, we're expecting about a 20% reduction in kilowatt usage. Now, the solar piece, the net metering, we pay the 12 cents plus all of the charges that National Grid charges us. We then get credits for that same amount for what's produced, and we pay the solar company approximately 10 cents all in a kilowatt. That's a huge savings. So that's done a lot. Now, it's funny because you save the money when you first get the whole thing set up, but then that becomes your budget. So it's not like you are saving money, but your budget is now set at a new rate. We locked in heating oil this year at $2.66 a gallon. That's a really good price compared to if anybody's filled up their oil at home recently, you're probably paying a little over $3. We buy our heating oil. It comes through Devaney Oil, which one of their locations is in Mendon. We buy it through the Norfolk Collaborative, which is a collaborative organization. So it goes out to bid. They bid on it. They won the bid. It used to be through a different company. But again, it keeps our costs down. Now, we only have oil heat at Misco, but we burn how many gallons of oil a day at Misco?
Depends on the weather. We can burn up to 1,000 gallons a day.
God.
Depending on if it's zero outside, then when these really cold spells, we just bought 5,000 gallons the other day. We buy them in 5,000 gallon increments. When the tank gets down to about 4, we put in 5. We never want to go over 9 because we never want to overfill the tank or have any problems with the tank outside.
But so think about that. Your home heating oil is 250 gallons of what your tank is. We've got a 10,000 gallon tank and we're burning the equivalent of your full tank that hopefully lasts a month in one day sometimes. And it's a relatively efficient boiler. It was installed about 10 years ago, so I'm sure there's a better version today, but we're not exactly replacing it. All right. As far as our strengths and weaknesses, strengths that are not weaknesses, but areas of growth. What? You got your hand up.
Want to go back?
Oh, I was gonna ask, what are the other three? Are the other 3 schools on natural gas?
Natural gas, yeah.
Okay.
So about probably 12 or 14 years ago, there was a grant from National Grid. They converted all the schools' boilers. Well, Nipmuc was always gas.
Yeah.
Memorial and Clough, they converted the boilers over, and they actually paid to run the gas line from Route 16 to Clough School because it wasn't there. It was already at Memorial. We just
Right.
had to run it up and in. But National or Eversource paid for all of that stuff. So it was a relatively free conversion.
Yeah, that's great.
The natural gas. Now, we have not locked in that price because the prices I'm being offered to lock in natural gas are higher than what we're paying through Eversource.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lock in at a higher price. It just makes no
I
sense.
just noticed that the current prices for natural gas have gone up extensively the past month.
Yeah, well, we at one point we were paying about, I don't know, 30 cents a therm, which was again a ridiculously low price. But this was several years ago. But we have not locked in. We keep looking at it, but what I keep getting for quotes is higher than what I can get just through the basic supply. So we've just stayed with that. All right, our number one strength, and I tell Ken this all the time, he knows more about our buildings than anybody in the world. So he is a strength that we really, really appreciate. I can tell you when Habib and Associates did their facility, basically Ken told them about the buildings way more than they would have ever seen on their own, which made that a better report, but it's because of him. We also have a really good staff. We've had a lot of transition over, I'd say, the last 3 or 4 years. We've got some really good people in all of the buildings right now. I'm really comfortable with where we are. So that is a real strength. The preventative maintenance, I give Ken some grief about this sometimes because he always wants to proactively do stuff. And I'm like, but there's nothing wrong with it. Why are we fixing it if it's not broken? But by doing that, we save money. Right?
It saves us from shutting the building down if something was to go wrong.
That is the goal, is that we want schools to be open. Right?
Yes, that is one of many goals.
And then we are constantly looking at the cost of what we're spending to see if we can do better on pricing. As far as growth areas, one of the things that we've talked about, but we may need to move this direction eventually, is creating what we call maintenance staff as opposed to a custodial staff. It's harder and harder to find custodians that also can do some of the carpentry things and electrical things that, most towns have a maintenance staff that goes out and takes care of all these things. And then the schools have people in their buildings. We don't have that right now. So that's something that we need to think about. So that's an area of growth. Obviously, capital needs, we've talked about it quite a bit. We have a lot of capital needs. We're addressing the roof this spring. We've got some other projects we're going to bring forward this spring, but we do have a lot of work on the capital side. The buildings, this building is 28 years old. The carpet in this room is 28 years old. These tables are 28 years old. It's kind of what John referenced before. We're going to need to make some upgrades at some point. So we're going to come forward in the spring with some capital projects, and we'll continue to work on those. The other thing we've talked about with both Mendon and Upton is maybe some collaboration with the towns for field maintenance. They have fields. They basically each have one person in each town that does all of their fields, and we try to handle it within our buildings. But maybe there's an opportunity there for us to collaborate and have a person that basically does the towns and the fields, or maybe a couple of people. So those are ideas that we'd like to look at for growth. All of those obviously are going to cost probably more money than we're currently spending, which is what has held us back a little bit. As far as the budget for next year, there's really only two main things that are going up. One is salaries. We have a contract, so our custodial salaries are going to go up around $48,000. That's spread out over 20 or 21 employees. And then we need to invest a little bit of money in the water system at MISCO. We're finding that we're spending more than we budgeted the last 2 or 3 years. So we're going to need to look at that. But the total budget is up about $73,000. A lot of other lines, one line might be up $3,000, another line down $3,000. When we go through the budget, I looked at things like, all right, over the last 3 years, we spent this amount on gas. Maybe we can reduce that a little bit. This one here, we need to go up a little bit because we need to spend a little bit more money. But in reality, we're pretty much level funding the maintenance budget and have been doing that for probably the last 10 or 15 years. That's a challenge. But we seem to always be able to make it work. And there's always that, we don't always know what's going to go wrong or what it's going to cost. The water meter and the valves and stuff at Nipmuc was something we were not aware of probably until late last spring or early summer.
Yeah, we've been watching it deteriorate.
Yeah, well, That's what I get. So those are the main investment requests that you're seeing in the budget. Other than that, it's pretty much a flat budget. As far as staffing, we've got 20 FTEs. As far as the custodial staff, we're not proposing any changes to that. But again, as I mentioned, we might want to start to look at some alternatives and how we're handling that part. As far as the facilities go, the roof is coming up, the building management systems. We have a meeting this Thursday with someone who's given us a proposal for Clough only so far. But that proposal was, I think I mentioned this at capital planning, was about $30,000 to replace the system, where we've been told it could be up to $1 million. We're meeting with them and doing a walkthrough because we want to know, what are we missing, right? You know, it's the car without tires, doors, steering wheel. But it's a wireless system.
I was just gonna say,
Exactly.
wireless.
So we're looking at that. Ken's meeting him at 7 o'clock in the morning. I probably will not join him at 7, but maybe I'll join him around 8. And we're gonna go through that at Clough. We feel like if the proposal seems viable, we're gonna do it at Clough. If it works out at Clough, then we're gonna look at the other 3 buildings. Nitluck is a priority because we've got some problems here with the systems. And then the capital projects are long-term. Some are short-term, some are medium-term, some are long-term, but the capital projects list is not going to go away.
Did you ask if that BMS guy does clocks and?
I did. I emailed them and they said they sort of like were wavering on it, but then when I met with them in person, I forgot. It wasn't on my mind, so we will ask them Thursday. But yes, we're going to check into that as well.
It's an all-in-one system.
It's all wireless.
One of the things that might be interesting and useful is to go through the capital plan and considering, you know, this maintenance staff proposition. Which of those projects could be completed with maintenance staff opposed to paying an external company to come in and do those projects? Can we check any of those off the list of the capital needs expense with maintenance staff?
You mean like if we're outsourcing electrical or plumbing or groundskeeping?
I think a lot of the capital needs for capital.
Yeah, they're pretty big ticket items.
And they're not just people.
You know, replacing parts.
Right, no, you definitely, as the supplies, but in some cases it might be recaulking windows or something, right? That's something maintenance staff could
Probably wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, there might
Because of
be
the
a couple.
elevation and the work and the staging and getting them up there, and guys aren't skilled to do that and remove it and do it properly.
I have another example though. It's more of a question. Like we were walking by the Misco, those lockers in that back hall.
The lower D wing,
Yeah, and in the lockers are listed in the capital project. So I was wondering, could we just sand them down and paint them as opposed to replacing them? And that was that kind of thing. Like, how can we save money on some of the needs that we have to, we're still trying to reduce that capital list.
Or even if you buy new lockers, maintenance could install.
we have limited skill sets.
No,
in some of
Well,
the.
if it's a maintenance staff.
Oh, if we did. Yeah, there's a possibility of that, yeah, sure.
Maintenance, right, I mean, that's the proposition.
Those particular lockers we're talking about were actually electrostatically painted probably 10 or 15 years ago during a previous renovation. And it just didn't adhere as well as we thought it was going to. It's just, you know, old lockers putting a new coat on them, it just doesn't stand up like the windows behind. They're all steel windows, they were painted 28 years ago. And you know, it's the environment that they're in. It's lower level, damp. You know, different type of metal.
So if we didn't replace them, although that would, you know, be the nice, more long-term solution, would be going for some solution that's like a 15-year solution. I don't know, so that's an example.
Yeah, possibly, yes.
But going along that line, one of the things we've talked about is the auditorium at NISCO. If you know, underneath the stage, you have that honeycomb stuff and kids throw all kinds of junk in there. It would be, we're trying to get somebody to come and just finish it with like a wood of some kind.
Right.
If you had carpenters as part of your maintenance staff, that's something that you probably potentially could do. As opposed to outsourcing it. You wouldn't have the staff that could say replace the stage floor.
Right,
Finish the gym floors, but some of the other stuff, I mean, maybe if you had somebody, some districts or some towns, they have a plumber on staff, they have an electrician on staff. So when they need electrical work done, they just send somebody over. And that's, you know, we have people on contract that come and do that work. They do a great job, but maybe that's enough, you know.
We
an
train
opportunity.
our custodians every day on something new. These guys come in, they're very green. You know, they know residential, they don't know commercial buildings, so we teach them every day. Whatever I teach them makes my job easier when I can talk to them over the phone. You know, the circuit breaker strip, we got a leak. This is how you find a leak in a building. You look at the tag and follow the tag to the shut-off valve before we have any major damage. And these guys,
Shut up, Val, it's important.
it's hard to find them too. You need to know what to do. You need to know the difference between a sprinkler pipe, a gas pipe, and a water pipe. And some of these guys have no clue when they look up in the ceilings, but they're willing to learn.
One of the other things that I should have referenced in this and I didn't is we did add this year an assistant to Ken, one of our custodians, Brett Bergeron, who's the head custodian at Memorial, is now kind of going around with Ken as well, learning more about the building. It's been a huge asset in many ways because he helps, like, first of all, he helps Ken because Ken can't be in 4 buildings all at the same time. But it's given us another person as a go-to person that understands how to fix some of these things. And he's learning as well. I mean, Ken is teaching him. Like I said, Ken knows everything about these buildings. Everybody else is trying to learn. I've been listening to him for 25 years and I still.
He learns a lot.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, and I will give him credit because all the pictures in this came from him. He comes in every day and says, "Do you want to see pictures?" And I'm usually like,
Jay
"No,
says, no, we don't.
I don't want to see pictures." But then I call him up, "Ken, I need a bunch of pictures for a presentation." So he's got them all.
Any questions on the pictures?
Yeah. Any other questions on this?
No, I'll just maybe just kind of echo what Jim said, though. I think at some point along the way, this almost becomes like a Vans, right? It's $100,000 investment, and in 1 year, we've saved 40. These are gonna pay for themselves in 3 years. But maybe it is worth thinking about a carpenter or something else to add to your staff.
Yeah, it would be a restructuring of our staffing or potentially maybe even with the towns. I mean, I don't know about Upton, but I know Mendon has no maintenance staff whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm
We
pretty
did bring it up when I met with them
Yeah.
to see if that
That's
this
kind of
was
like the
a
IT thing.
future area to.
right. So those are all areas that I think, in the near future need to start to look at.
We only hire custodians, but the custodians do have a skill set. Some guys like to paint, some guys can change ceiling tiles, they can use a razor knife.
Yeah.
I cut his finger today, but that's not. the end of the world.
You guys got pretty sure.
He didn't have any stitches, just a little Band-Aid, he was fine.
All right, any other questions, guys? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out tonight and staying late.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
All right, I think we're on to school committee subcommittees. I believe the only one that's met since we met last is policy. Is that correct? Nothing else has met?
We did meet.
All right, so we will turn it over to. What's that?
I had a reprieve. I thought he said we did meet.
No, I think it's only policy. I'm just trying to move us along here. So Vicky, you want to take us away?
Latency long, so that's I can here. So have a number of policies that we're bringing forward for second reading tonight.
IJOA field trips, JJH student late night overnight travel, JJH-R student travel regulations, EGD school committee review procedures, BGE policy dissemination, and BHE electronic messaging by school committee. They're all second readings according to this.
Yes, thank you.
Can we do it all in
Many
one?
words.
I think we can.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
I move to approve those policies on the second reading.
Second.
All in favor or any discussion, questions on them? There's a lot of material there. Not all in favor?
Aye. Good. So the number for first reading as well.
Yep, we have, I'll do those first and then, so for first reading tonight, EIA, EIBA, EID, EJ, and, I'm sorry, not that one. EJ and ECAF are just for first reading. Get those conserving through in the notes. Then we have for PID, we're looking to waive the first reading, because I believe the only two changes in that one were just, were to make it gender neutral. Correct. I'm thinking of the wrong policy. That's correct, thank you.
All right. Looks fine, just opening it up.
There's a couple I don't have access to.
Which one? I can do it now.
School committee member orientation and school committee conferences, conventions, and workshops.
I'll move to waive the first reading on policy BID, school committee member compensation and expenses, and approve the modified language.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good.
All right, so, and that leaves policies KEB and KEBR. So these are two policies that do not exist in the MASC policy reference manual, and MASC has recommended as our legal counsel that we remove these from our policy manual. So in some of the so when I spoke with MASC, they explained that those policies were eliminated from their reference manual because they are covered in two other policies on public comment, BEDH and BETHB. So they are redundant since they are covered in those other policies. So their recommendation was that we remove the policies in their entirety.
Make a motion to remove those policies.
Second.
Okay. And just to say, this is KEB and KEB-R.
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Good.
All right, and then we've got some homework. We've got it looks like 4 more to review for offline to vote on next time. Great.
And we already did BID, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
yeah,
And
That's
also,
5.
that's enough. That's enough.
and also we spent a lot of time just to jump in on social media policy as well. We just didn't. That's why we're going up to the
Yep.
bell right
Alright.
into this meeting. So we had a
Yeah.
few more, but it'll probably be up for first reading at the next meeting.
Next meeting, okay, sounds good. Are there any other subcommittee chairs that want to provide any comments tonight? Okay. All right, there's no other matters that have come up since we posted the agenda, so nothing's come up in the last 48 hours. We got some future agenda items, more budget presentations, district action plans, mid-year update and review. Then we'll look at the 25-26 school calendar. All right, if there's nothing else, we're going to move to executive session. Exemption number 1 to discuss complaints brought about an employee. Motion and vote to adjourn into an executive session for the purpose of exception number 1 to discuss complaints brought against an employee. The committee will only return to open session for the purpose of adjourning the meeting. And we need to do a roll call vote.
Jim,
I'll second that motion.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jim Forkey, aye.
Sean Nichols and I.
Eric Brown, aye.
Great, Lawrence, aye.
Thank you, Bud Nixon, aye.
Hagan, aye.
And we are adjourned to executive session at 8:50.